Defeat America. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Close to 2 years ago, reports began surfacing that militant jihadists were gathering power in Syria. President Obama did not take any action. Then the situation began to get worse. ISIS infiltrated into Iraq, and a full-fledged ground war began. Once again, President Obama did little. Finally, the conflict threatened Kurdistan, a strong American ally in the northern part of Iraq. That situation forced Mr. Obama to step up bombing the ISIS savages, who were also taunting the USA and the world by beheading captured Westerners on camera. But despite all the carnage, President Obama and the Pentagon did not develop any cohesive plan to defeat ISIS. Why is there no coordinated strategy to defeat the jihad after all this time? Teddy Roosevelt's basic philosophy was speak softly and carry a big stick. With the Obama administration, we basically have speak incessantly and carry nothing. The American people deserve to know the truth about President Obama's campaign to defeat the jihad. And the truth is, there is no campaign. And to this day, there is no campaign. Today, tens of thousands of refugees in Iraq are creating chaos as they march toward Baghdad. ISIS has captured the city of Ramadi, just 70 miles away from the Iraqi capital. Shades of Vietnam. This is a catastrophe. Yet the Obama administration still doesn't see the urgency.
We have seen a lot of success, but we've also seen significant periods of setback, and that's part of what a military conflict is going to be, particularly one that's going to be a long-term proposition like this one.
Well, it will be a long-term proposition if the Iraqi government falls, which is certainly possible. Perhaps all Americans should send Mr. Ernest some sand so he can put his head in it. The brutal truth is, the Obama administration is losing the fight against ISIS. That savage group is now operating in 9 countries. It may have even infiltrated into Afghanistan, where we have U.S. troops. We'll get to that in a moment. Talking Points believes that the apathy the Obama administration has shown to this growing worldwide threat endangers all Americans. The best historical comparison I can give you is President James Buchanan, who ignored the growing threat of secession from the southern states. Buchanan did little to keep the country together, and presto, a bloody civil war breaks out. Thank God Abraham Lincoln had the guts and intelligence to win that war. If President Obama doesn't kick it into gear quickly, the next president of the United States will be facing an armed conflict in the Middle East that will dwarf anything we have seen so far, including the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Dr. Michael Rubin, author of the book Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engaging Rogue Regimes, and Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, Senior Fellow at the London Center. So, Colonel, I understand you have new information about Afghanistan and ISIS. Right. What is it?
Bill, basically, ISIS is on the move, not surprisingly. What they're doing in Afghanistan is quite brilliant. Much like they partnered with the Ba'ath Party in northern Iraq to actually understand how to go about dismantling parts of the country, they've now partnered with something called the HIG, a terrorist organization run by a guy named Hekmatyar, a warlord, who's basically giving them inside information. Right now, my sources tell me they have control of 5 northern provinces in Afghanistan, plus they're now taking over the drug trade in the south, north and south. We're talking about over 1,000 ISIS fighters, many of which are actually Uzbeks and Chechens coming in, foreign fighters, and are being very effective in doing what ISIS does best: beheadings, threatening. They're setting up a tax system, so that's actually they're going to take control of the old smuggler routes. So they're going after in north, Bill, the actual mineral resources. There's lithium resources there, biggest in the world. China's already there exploiting some of that, the copper there. But essentially, ISIS is playing it smart. Right. They're going after all these profit
ISIS is moving in with the help of this small terror group. What about the Taliban? Right. Are they going to fight it out with ISIS?
That's an interesting point. The Afghan people are very resistant, as we have found, to anybody they consider an invader. They did accept Al-Qaeda, Bill. They did allow Al-Qaeda to exist there, kind of peacefully coexist. But this is different. Al-Qaeda was kind of coexisting, not taking over. ISIS is now taking over. So I think there's going to be some real issues. And I'm hearing from the Afghan government, who's aware of all this, Pentagon is downplaying it, obviously, but the Afghan government's aware of this. They're trying to mobilize even some of the Taliban to pick up arms against these guys.
It'll be interesting to see how that shakes down. All right, Mr. Rubin, now I am fairly, in a fairly strong way, indicting the Obama administration for basically being apathetic in the face of this growing threat. And you have to acknowledge the growing threat, even if Mr. Ernest plays it down. Do you understand the apathy, Mr. Rubin?
Well, I think the basic problem, Bill, is that in the fight against ISIS, it's one step forward, two steps back, but the White House and the Pentagon will only allow the reporting of the one step forward, and so we don't recognize that we are losing this war and that we refuse